Welcome to Adults Only Comedy Berlin. Today we have Tamer Kattan.
You said it perfectly.
I
love that my name ended with a question mark.
I just got a little self-conscious at the end, and I was like, oh, I didn't check.
That's awesome.
If it's because it's like Kattan, or if it's Kattan.
No, you said it right.
Kattan.
Yeah, Kattan. Yeah. It actually means cotton.
Cotton.
Like in Arabic, you pronounce it atan, which means cotton, like Egyptian cotton.
Egyptian cotton.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're the cotton people.
You're the cotton people. So your heritage is really interesting. So we met in Barcelona. You're a US comedian, but you've got an interesting. What's your background again?
I'm Egyptian and Greek, and a little bit of French, but Muslim dad, Jewish mom.
That's so awesome. Muslim dad, Jewish mom.
Yeah.
How I suppose, okay, so Judaism passes down, and the father and the mother, and Islam is just
exact same rule.
Yeah.
Like Judaism, if your mom's a Jew, you're a Jew.
Yeah.
And Islam, if your dad's a Muslim, you're a Muslim. It's like as if they thought there's absolutely no way people of these religions will get together.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Like, it's funny because whenever anybody thinks of Islam or Judaism, it's very light switch on and off. But with Christianity, there's a dimmer switch.
Yeah.
You can be like,
yeah.
I'm a Christian, but I love Iron Maiden and masturbating. You know what I mean? But if you're a Muslim and you say, oh, I love this hot dog, they're like, what?
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't say I'm a great Muslim.
Yeah. And same with the Jewish thing. It's like,
Totally.
What are you doing eating whatever non-kosher stuff?
Yeah.
I should know what non-kosher stuff is. Like ham, right? They don't eat pork. They don't eat any.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's so funny how similar Judaism and Islam are.
Yeah.
They're very similar.
Like
and they'd both be mad at me for...
foreskins.
They're so similar, they'd both be angry at me for saying that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like foreskins, pork.
Yeah.
Like, let's solve the peace problem by making the wall a wall of pork.
Yeah.
Neither side will go near it. You know what I mean?
That's beautiful.
They're so similar.
And also, like, even covering women's hair as well.
Yeah.
Is, like,
with
serious.
a hijab or with a wig.
Yeah.
You know, and Christians do it too. Like, one of my friends was like, oh, I can't believe all the women have to have their hair covered. I go, I know. And tell me again, what was the color of like your favorite nun's hair?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I
It's
mean?
exactly the
Like,
same.
It's the same, man. Religion's bananas.
Religion. So okay, you've got the option to be either if you ever wanted to.
Sure.
Did you have a big period of your life where you got really spiritual and like tried to figure it out?
I wanted to be, but
Yeah.
I realized that it wasn't the spirituality that I was seeking as much as the community.
Yeah, totes.
Like, I was an only child. And then when you immigrate, too, a lot of times when people immigrate, they become more religious.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, it's like a form of community. And you're leaving your family behind, you're coming to a new country, you're living without a safety net.
Yeah.
So people tend to gravitate towards like religious groups.
Yeah.
And for us, we just really didn't have that as an option because my dad didn't want... Inevitably, my dad would have Muslim friends, they'd talk shit about my mom, and then we'd stop being friends with them. My mom would have Jewish friends, they'd talk shit about my dad, we'd stop being friends with them.
Wow.
And it was, so then we just became friends with people that weren't super religious or weren't, too judgy.
So, but your parents still identify as those religions. It's not,
I think culturally.
Yeah, it's more of a cultural thing.
But I mean, I remember in college I did a report on Islam, and I'm like Islam 101.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, Dad, what are the 5 pillars of Islam? And he goes, what? I could tell him to name every Beatles song, and he's like, he could do it like Rain Man. Yeah. But I asked him the 5 pillars of Islam, and he was like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, and your mom also just like...
Not really.
It's like a cultural Judaism, right?
My mom's like super... My dad, on his deathbed, he had cancer when he died. He was on his deathbed, and he had a statue of the Virgin Mary. Because it was like, there was definitely... What we had in our house, in terms of spirituality, was the point of intersection between Islam and Judaism.
Yeah.
It was all the things that they both agreed on.
Yeah.
And there was a Christian priest who came into my dad's hospital room and said, can I pray for you? Like, on his deathbed. And my dad's like, yeah, of course you can.
Wow.
And that's the thing I'm probably most proud of my dad for, because we didn't have the greatest relationship, but when he was dying and when he saw his mortality, all the toxic masculinity faded away. It all went away. Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, I don't want to. I've made some really bad comments about death recently to people, and I'm like, I don't want to put my foot in it again. But I guess it's nice that people can mellow out in their, in their end moments.
For sure.
That's but okay, so you didn't ever you made a great comment before we started recording about if you were a stripper, you would be the stripper with the worst daddy issues. Is that
Yeah.
Is that because you have daddy issues?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I said on stage all this time, you know, it's like to fill the gap that my dad left from not saying once, I'm proud of you.
Oh.
I'm like, well, I'll show you, Dad. I'll have these strangers throw dirt clods into the hole.
Oh wow, that's
every
beautiful.
smile, every laugh.
That's amazing.
It's another shovel full of dirt.
Yeah, and like daddy issues are just not feeling seen and not feeling appreciated
100%.
and feeling abandoned in whatever emotional or physical ways, right?
100%. I mean, it's universal.
Yeah.
Like I saw that there's this really great psychological study where they wanted to show what humans needed most in their lives. Maslow's hierarchy of needs starts with food and shelter, but they made these, they put these cages for these monkeys that had lost their family. So they were like orphaned monkeys, and they had them in one cage with a mother that was made of wire, and inside was milk. So they could get food from her, but she wasn't comfortable. And then they had another mother that was made of cotton, but there was no food. And 100% of the monkeys clung to the mother with no food because they needed that comfort. They needed comfort before they needed food.
Yeah.
So Maslow actually missed a foundational step. I just whistled. Step. Yeah. And the foundational step was the drive to belong. Is the strongest human drive is the drive to belong.
Yeah. 100%, which accounts for all of like, you know, where there's no community, then it's like, well, there's religion or there's drugs or just like whoring yourself out, which you know is all part of it. But did you also see like a famous study about how there were 40 babies left in put aside in like a hotel, and the nurses could only give them milk and couldn't touch them, and like they all just started dying.
Oh God.
Like I can't remember.
Who donated their baby for that experiment? Jesus.
I think it was. I think they might have been like orphaned or like just
Jesus.
horrible.
Could you imagine the check at the end of the study?
Oh, dude.
Thanks so much. Here's your $80.
Yeah, my God. But just like imagine being part of that research team, being like, shit, we just killed.
Yeah.
I think it was something like maybe 20 babies died before they cut it off, and yeah.
How about after the 5th baby go? Okay, we know what's happening.
It's so
20 babies.
Terrified and
Jesus.
like and I obviously it was during lockdown that I read this study because I was like, I miss human contact. Well, I was working at a kindergarten, and when I eventually left the kindergarten, then I was in this like dry spell and with no kids. Like I was getting a lot of my intimacy needs as sort of borderline not okay as that sounds. I was getting most of my intimacy needs from these kids that I was looking after. Because in Germany, you sleep with the kids during sleep time. Like they have a nap time, and they need like a cuddle to get to sleep. So I'd be getting cuddles every day.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's creeps out there, but we shouldn't define our lives around the ways just the creeps behave.
Yeah.
You know.
So hold on. So you as a I was going to say whorebag. That's like, whorebag is such a nasty term, but I love it. Like, I call myself a whorebag. But okay, so like we actually don't know each other that well, because I think when we met, Shahak was right in there, and it was like, there wasn't a lot. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to try and pry into that hang. And I was like, geez, like, does Shahak want to fuck him or what? You know, like, I haven't seen him interested in a person as much as I saw him interested in you. I was like, what has he got that we don't? No, but yeah, where I was going with that was, I don't know. Like, do you go both ways?
No, I don't. It's funny because I heard one of your other interviews and somebody say, no, I wish I could be gay.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I'm like disappointingly straight.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, disappointingly straight.
So annoyingly.
But I have more gay friends than straight friends.
Uh-huh.
It's a really interesting thing. Like, I think I connect with my gay friends more because we were both outsiders. Mm-hmm. So we both have such a shared experience in every other way. I connect with gay people more than straight people.
So how, like, outside is like, okay, so you've got your cultural, like your family outsiderness, and then you moved a bit, and then what else made you an outsider?
I think my dad was a big thing, and then not constantly trying to figure out what I was. You know, I got to America, they're like, you're not a real American. Jews were like, you're not a real Jew. Muslims were saying, you're not a real Muslim. You know, everybody in Egypt was saying, I'm not a real Egyptian anymore.
Yep.
And then I realized I was this thing in the middle.
Yeah.
I was this hybrid thing trying to be two different things.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm this thing in the middle, and I'm cool with that thing in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that. But it just took me a long time to be... Even when you see kids with mohawks walking down the street, they're usually walking with another kid with a mohawk.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? They're united by individuality.
Yeah, yeah,
It's this paradox. But to be like alone and going, I'm a hybrid, I'm an in-betweener, is like this thing that I've started to accept, and I'm seeing more and more people accepting, but it really made me feel like an outsider in a lot of ways. But part of it too was like my dad didn't want to be a dad. But I don't think back then women didn't have choices back then, whether they could or couldn't have babies, but men didn't either.
Yeah.
And he had a kid when he definitely should not have had a kid. He should have at least had a cat first. You know what I mean? Like, let's test your capacity. An egg is too much. Just a cat.
Just a cat.
Just give him a cat, like a street cat even.
One that like won't necessarily stay around that often. What was his? Okay, I'm going deep on the father thing. What was his relationship with his dad like?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think he had a phenomenal relationship with his dad.
Oh,
but then
that's
his
surprising.
dad died early, and he went wild. And so my grandmother, who was super kind to me, was kind of an aggro single mom with these two wild boys in Egypt. So she sent him to boarding school, and in boarding school they traumatized him. They abused him physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yes.
And then when he was in the military, he saw some horrific things. I mean, I know a story of where he was in the war in Egypt. He went to the hospital, and the doctor told him, take off those clothes right there and put them on. And he goes, on that guy right there that's sleeping? He goes, he's not sleeping. It was a dead man. He had to take the clothes off a dead man and then put them on.
Oh my God.
Like psychologically it messed with him, but he was from a culture that didn't believe in therapy.
Yeah.
You know, so I used to be really angry at him until I started going to therapy myself, and I realized my dad was a victim too, and this guy that bit my dad was like a vampire, and then my dad turned into a vampire, and then he bit me, and now I have to go to therapy so I could be like one of the vampires on Twilight.
Yeah.
Like, I can have a girlfriend. Let's go out in the sunshine. Better be cloudy though.
Oh, that's a great analogy. I like that a lot. Yeah, thank God for therapy, huh? And also, just being able to see, to break the chain, you know?
100%. I mean, just knowing you're not alone.
Yeah.
Is the hugest thing. Like, it always cracks me up when people say, oh, I don't need anybody. Yeah, you do.
Oh, dude, what?
Like, the only people that don't need anybody else are the people who serially kill everybody else.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
we need each other. We totally need each other.
We completely need each other. Like, I feel like I only really found my community, like my first time I've ever really fitted in has been in Berlin in the comedy scene.
That's awesome.
And it's not like everyone's my best friend, but I feel like at least talking to these people, I feel understood.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the thing with comedians.
Huge.
Everywhere. It's like you go somewhere and you're like, these people get me.
Yeah.
You're never alone.
It's one of the most important things in the world, I think.
Yeah.
You know, like I had this argument with a friend who was saying, oh, racism is natural. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's super unnatural. We are so soft-wired to be united with each other that if one of us paints an amazing picture, writes an amazing song, or makes an amazing movie, the rest of us will cry.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane that one person can elicit that level of emotion across everyone who actually makes eye contact with art.
Yeah.
Like that, we are designed to help each other. Because if we didn't, like the people who are racist now, if we were cave people and they behaved that way, they'd be the first to die.
Yeah, totally.
They'd be the ones who were being attacked by saber-toothed tigers while they were trying to attack one of us.
Yeah.
It's community that saved us and made us survive because we're not top of the food chain at all.
Yeah. Well, it's capitalism, I think, that created racism, right? Or it's just like wanting money. It's like, those guys have the cows and we have the corn, and like we want the corn's got money, and we don't want the cows. We don't want the cow people. We got the corn. We're gonna keep our own things, and then like borders and this concept of like nationality and otherness, and it's just for gain, right?
Yeah.
Capitalism. All right. We're ticking off some topics here that are not sexy, but they're very important topics.
They lead to sexual things. The
They lead to
frustration.
sex. What do you think about? Okay, so have you heard of the book or read the book? Sex. What is it? Sex at Dawn.
No.
No? Okay. I haven't. But Alex Upatov, my housemate, he has read it. It's very interesting. It basically looks at how monogamy started with agriculture. And basically with what we're talking about with like, they've got the cows and we've got the corn and, you know, keeping things separate and handing down property to down a line of you know, spawn, whatever, babies. Yeah. And basically monogamy being this completely like economic structure, and that we're not naturally like that at all. Yeah. So what's your take on monogamy?
I think it's so subjective, and I think all of us are like, this is a metaphor I used before, and I keep thinking of it all the time, which is that I don't get too mad at people of a certain age when they haven't figured out modern culture, because I feel like there's these constant updates in our software, how we're supposed to treat women, how we're supposed to treat gay people, how we're supposed to treat minorities. And some of us are smartphones and we can download the updates, but some of us are flip phones. Yeah. You know, like I play with snakes.
Love snakes.
But I recognize that some of it isn't even conscious. Yeah. You know, like I remember going to college in Sweden, and because my semester hadn't started yet and my friends were already in school, I went to the movies, and Stallone, the Stallone movie Judge Dredd was playing, and it was rated X, and I was like, whoa, fuck, it's a porno that regular people went in, so I went in, regular Stallone movie. Yeah. And then 2 days later I saw another movie with a Swedish friend and his like 12-year-old nephew, and a guy pulled out his penis and was like shaking his penis on the screen, and I was like, oh. And then my friend looked at me and started laughing, and I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I forgot you're American. I'm like, what does that mean? He goes, you guys rate your movies by sex. We rate our movies by violence. Yeah. And I'm like, and it wasn't until he made me aware of a decision that I wasn't consciously active in that I realized I don't agree with my programming. I have to shift it. So I think like monogamy really depends on what your programming is, what you've been exposed to, and whether you're willing to change it.
Yeah. Yeah, monogamy's like I've got a friend who recently broke up with a girl because they've been seeing each other for 6 months, and he kind of mentioned it within the first 3 months. He's like, look, you know, I want to still be able to like let's have threesomes, or let's like experiment, and you know, when I'm on tour, like I won't be around, and you won't be around, so you know, you've got your freedom, I've got mine. And then it got to the six-month mark, and she was like, I don't want anything open about this. I can't do that. And so they just broke up. They broke up, and it's like the longest thing that I know he's been in for a while, and just ending it right there. And yeah, I think
it was a mutual agreement, and nobody wanted to sway.
Yeah, both of them didn't want to budge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, like I don't think it's funny because when people think of monogamy, they're like, oh, what's your sexual preference? I don't think it's my sexual preference. I think it's my every other time of the day preference. It's like I feel safer when I'm in a monogamous relationship, and safety was my weakness. Yeah. I didn't feel safe at home when I was a kid, and I'm not going to pretend that there's no connection there. Yeah. There's totally a connection there. Yeah. And it's weird to be like, my preference for sex comes from a gap I had in my childhood from a relationship I had with another man, with my dad.
I mean, but it makes like, it's like all of, you know, if you're mature enough to see it, like all of it's like that, right? Like all of our even like fetishes, all of our kinks, all 100%. Of our orientation, everything. Although not oriented, like if you're attracted to the same sex, that's not anything to do with, well, it can be to do with what you've been exposed to, but it's also, isn't it genetic? Like it's actually in your, it's in your definitely. Stuff.
I don't think it's choice.
It's DNA. No, it's not choice. It's not choice, but it can be obviously it can be influenced by exposure. But
I mean, that's how we all find our tastes. Is exposure to different preferences,
and hopefully being open to exposing yourself to those things, so you know what you like.
100%. I mean, that to me is like, that's really when I feel most alive, is when I know what I want, I know what I like, and I can live that way and not be afraid of it. And it's like the best feeling in the world. That's what real freedom feels like. It's what I feel like touring Europe. It's what I didn't feel like touring America.
Yeah.
Even though America
okay.
has the brand of freedom.
Okay, so why is that?
Just the level of tension and divisiveness, the response people have if you don't agree with them. I think it all started with George W. Bush.
Yeah.
We keep electing stupid people to do intelligent people's work.
Yeah, you guys do.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. And Socrates even said this. He goes, voting is supposed to be an intellectual exercise.
Yeah.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to be educated.
Yeah.
An educated population is a democracy.
Yeah.
But a birthright voting process, just because you're born there, it leads to demagoguery.
Yeah.
And so when George W. Bush made this teeny little error and he said, you're either with us or against us, man, that was like the runways in Paris, and he wore a little black dress that everybody else wanted. And they all started saying, hey, this is cool now. I can say if you don't agree with me, you're my enemy. And I don't know that anybody else has said that on a political platform since like a Hitler. But people don't realize the power of that position.
Yeah.
And how dangerous it is to have somebody like that in that position.
It's like you're a people. You're a people, and you can disagree on things, but you're still a group of people
100%.
that need to work together. 100%. So you can't be
100%.
creating otherness or enemies. Where do you go to from there? Like,
100%. It's completely insane, and it's for all the times I've grown up in my life watching my heroes get thrown with this yardstick where they're told, hey, kids look up to you. You're supposed to be a role model, Mr. Heavy Metal Singer. You're supposed to be a role model, Mr. Punk Rock Singer, Mr. Athlete. But then they hold that same fucking thing up to presidents and political. Yeah. Those guys have a way bigger influence on kids.
Absolutely.
It's insane that nobody goes up to Trump and goes, hey, kids are watching you.
Yeah.
But they give more shit to Ozzy Osbourne when he was singing. Like, come on.
Yeah. Oh my God, the States.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I was reading the news regularly for this Clubhouse show that we had. Good Morning Europe with comedians, news with comedians, and it was good reading the news again. I'd stopped reading the news when I was 25, and so it was like almost 10 years since I'd read the news. And look, like, okay, there's the US, but there's also like just everywhere. Like everywhere is crazy. You know, the US does make it a bit more of a crazy circus show of it.
A trend, yeah. Well, and certain companies like Cambridge Analytica, Facebook, all those people started selling their souls to the devil.
Yeah.
To monetize their platforms. Or they always say if you're using a platform or an app for free,
then you're the product. Exactly.
And it's like TikTok. I mean, Jesus Christ, if TikTok isn't a breeding ground for pedophilia. I mean, Jesus Christ, man.
No one can deny that it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's 100% pedophilia. It's okay, speaking of pedophilia, all right, so
here we go. I can feel the engines revving.
So I was out drinking with the guy that I'm seeing and his mate, and we're having very, very personal conversations last night. It was really fun. This is what alcohol is great for. You know, I didn't drink for a long time, and now I'm drinking again, and it's really a very important lubricant to get to know people. Other drugs, not so much. Like, I think it just becomes kind of fakery and whatever, but alcohol, people rip their heart open and put it on the table really for you, and it's just like, oh my God, you just told me that. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to say like the stuff that these friends told me, but the story that came up from me that I hadn't reflected on in a long time was that one of my first boyfriends, this guy that I was seeing, it was when I was 15 and he was 24. And,
wow.
And that's like, looking at that now, and I have reflected on it over the last few years, but it's still like my maturity back then was pretty solid, but 15 years old and he's 24. Like that is some legit pedophilia right there.
Yeah, he was in the sweet spot.
Yeah, he really was.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I don't know how to. It's this weird thing in my head. It's like I don't feel like I was abused. We didn't have sex. I don't think he ever. There was no like skin on skin, except for mouths. Like it was just like kissing, but he never touched me nakedly anywhere. But there was like dry humping on his bed. He took me out to dinners. He like got me ice cream.
Oh my God.
And it was because of this relationship. He told me that he'd broken up with his girlfriend. Apparently he hadn't. He was a manager of mine at the fast food.
Meet? That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
At the fast food restaurant that I worked at. KFC. He was one of my managers, and my brother was also a manager.
Wow.
And when my brother found out, he was so angry. And
of course.
I didn't know. I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, but I'm a mature, a young woman. Like I know what I'm doing. Like we have long conversations. This guy and I would have long conversations, like 8-hour phone conversations.
Wow.
Talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Like we were talking, Yeah. And I was like, I know I was only 15, but I didn't feel like there was any level of power, taking advantage of me. But
well, that's good, but
it was.
Yeah.
Like.
It's like saying I smoked a cigarette at a gas station, but I didn't feel in danger.
Yeah.
But it's like, but you could have.
You could have really.
Something really bad could have happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get it because I know, like in other, the French culture, for example, is practically their version of a sexual bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, where the women always date guys that are older, almost like a rite of passage, where they learn things from the older guy, and it's almost accepted culturally.
But like, how much of an age difference? It's not like
pretty big. I've seen some pretty shocking things. Yeah.
Like what?
I'd say similar to where you're at, like 15 and 24. But usually, I think it was usually like guys in their early 30s that were with girls that were pre-19, pre-18.
Oh la la.
Yeah. I've seen that and heard of it.
18 and 19, they're just so young.
So young.
Like, and I'm like, but I was like a mature 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But I look, you look at them now and you're just like, how can you even relate to them?
Yeah.
Like, what do you...
Totally.
And this guy seemed like, this is what I was saying to my friends last night, like, this guy was like a cool guy. Like, he listened to like the Crystal Method. Like, he listened to like some cool bands and techno, and he had like a car and a house, and he was like relative, like he was not a loser. He was not like a pedo, like he wasn't like that like you have, okay. Also, my friends showed me this horrible YouTube series, which is I think it's like Pedophile Police.
Oh God.
Yeah, and these people like basically catfish pedophiles and then meet them and then basically ambush them and then take them to the police.
Yeah, it's like To Catch a Predator in the States.
Yeah. Except this is just on and it's British, and there's one of these guys that gets caught, and he's so clearly not 100% mentally, like what's the correct term? He's like had got some level of mental disability or mental learning challenges, and watching him sort of defend himself and being like, oh no, I'm going to lose my job, and it was just like, and my friends are showing it to me laughing, and I'm like, this is such a
man. It's pretty wild. Like, I feel like I heard there's a psychologist named Dr. Honda that I really like. He's a legitimate psychologist, but he does a pretty wacky thing. He watches reality shows, and then he breaks down the people's behavior through the lens of actual psychology, which is cool. But I mean, because it's reality TV that is the content that he's using, at first I didn't like him, but then I started listening to him and going, okay, he's legit psychology. And it's called like something Seattle. I can't remember. But anyways, he said this thing about pedophiles that's really true, and it made me look at it really differently. He goes, this is an illness. Yeah. And we just demonize these people. Yeah. He said, and I understand the desire to demonize, I understand the programming to demonize, but that's not how you solve problems. No. You don't solve problems that way. And the things that we don't talk about inevitably becomes the things that most haunt us. Absolutely. And that most destroy our societies. And imagine, what if you did have tendencies towards pedophilia? Where do you go? Like, do you seek out help? Do you raise your hand and self-identify? Of course not. Like, no way. People are so demonized that they're actually making the problem worse. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. These people need. So for me, I did a bunch of research into pedophilia, not because of why was it. Body hair, and then like working at a kindergarten, and then like I just know a bunch of people who have been sexually abused as children as well. Yeah. Thankfully not myself, but and so I can't speak from experience, and but I'm very interested in the whole thing, and I haven't really been able to. There's no clear
what it is. Like, it's an illness. It's often very prevalent with people who do have learning difficulties, right?
Yeah.
Because there is this certain level of like, well, this is someone I can relate to.
Yeah.
But I think I think the core thing for like people without learning difficulties who have pedophilic tendencies, it's a power. It's a power thing.
100%.
It's just power. It's
100%.
just wanting to have an overwhelming degree of power over someone who is powerless.
Hurt people hurt people. That's what they always say, and it's such a truth, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I think our culture makes it harder. I mean, look at the news, right? Anytime the news talks about a terrible incident, they always put it through the lens of race. Black man robs bank instead of man without medical insurance robs bank to pay for bills.
Yeah.
You know, a Latino man does this, white man does that. You know, white men attack the Capitol instead of like insecure, sad men who are feeling like they're being replaced.
Yes.
So it's like, if the news just shifted the way they talked about problems, we'd probably be able, from a solution-based angle, as opposed to like just an us versus them.
Yeah.
Like, language is so powerful, and we don't even realize it.
Massively.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the pedophile thing, it's just like, it's all about, like, all of this comes back down to community as well. It's like, if these people had a community to reach out to and then get the help that they needed, then boom, we wouldn't be having
100%. And it's true, and it's funny because I know there's going to be people who listen to this and go, "Oh my God, that cat's defending pedophiles. Fuck that guy too."
Nah.
That's how demonized it is. No,
That's
I'm saying
crazy.
believe me, it doesn't bother me at all.
No,
like,
no.
I know who I am, but I'm saying that's the level of fucking terror there is around this topic, because it's a terrible thing, obviously, but we're not making it better by people demonizing the people that feel that way or have those tendencies. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and TikTok's not helping either.
God damn, no, it is not. It is not. Although if we can use TikTok to, you know, like, do you post stuff on TikTok?
Not really.
Not really?
I mean, it is definitely addictive. Like, I love the little videos. I love the digestible 1 minute of content and stuff. And it's interesting that way. You can totally fall into a rabbit hole. But I don't know that it's... the way I look at the different platforms... I
prefer to fall into a K-hole. Like, I don't find TikTok... Like, TikTok for me is not that... like, I see, like, Dragos, and he gets into it, and he's watching it for hours, and if he's sitting next to me, he'll be showing me, and I'm like, yeah, but, like, I also can't connect to, like, video games. I can't connect to anything that's not showing me something that has, like, meaning for me. You know, I can't do that.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. And for me, it's the same. It's like, that's how I want my main meals. Yeah. My main meals, I want to have substance, but every once in a while, I want a Kinder Bar or a Snickers of content. And that's what it is for me. It's usually when I'm, like, beyond bored. Yeah. I'll look at a TikTok or something.
But you're a comedian. You're never beyond bored, right?
No, and I was an only child, so I'm like, I'm very self-entertaining.
Right.
Yeah.
Self-entertaining. And you got married.
Yeah.
Have you been married before?
No.
You got married for the first time in your life.
At 49.
High five. That's beautiful.
Right when I said, there's no way I'm getting married. I literally said it on a podcast. And not even like 6 weeks later, I was like, I think I'm going to marry this girl.
Wow.
So weird.
What was the flip? Like, what was informing your I never gonna get married? What was informing that?
So I started using a dating app in an unusual way because I was quarantined. Yeah. And I wasn't used to living in New York and not being outdoors and being trapped in my little Lower East Side apartment. Mm-hmm. So I found out that Bumble had this feature called Passport. Yeah. Where you could quote unquote travel and put yourself in a different city. Yeah. And so that's what I did, because I was supposed to go to Spain at the time for a trip, and then the lockdown happened. So I'm like, well, I'll go there virtually. It's what I did when I was in college and poor. You know, I'd visit places through videos, like YouTube videos and shit. Yeah. So I met her, and we clicked like in a ridiculously hard way. And then we started speaking, and we had so much time. And also, to be honest, I think what happened is my first profile was kind of an indication that I didn't give a fuck. It showed like where I was coming from, and my profile was like, it was the anti-profile. Yeah. Everybody else is, here's what I'm great at. I'm like, I'm selfish.
Yeah.
I've been single for a long time because I tend to be an attention hog. I'm a comedian. I had a bad dad, but I'm nice and I like to tell jokes, and I have a culinary adventurous palate.
Oh, wow.
But I was super honest about all my flaws, and then she responded in kind and like goes, "Here's all the stuff that I suck at."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that was kind of funny." And then we had so much time.
Yeah.
So we spoke for hours every day, and then the phone calls went to FaceTimes, and then I was like running home faster just to talk to her.
Oh.
And she was like home alone in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And her roommate had gone back to Germany, and she goes, "Yeah, I have this flat all summer," and I'm like, "Oh, I already had COVID, and I have paperwork that says I have the antibodies." And at the time, Spain was like, "Yeah, you can come in if you have the antibodies."
Yeah.
So I flew there, and the day I came in, they're like, "Oh, the law changed when you were in the air."
What? No.
And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "If you didn't have a layover in London and you flew directly here, we would have had to let you in. But because you had a layover, we can't let you in." And the cop was like so apologetic. He was actually sweet. And then he said, "Come with me," and they put me into a jail cell.
Oh my God.
Yeah, man, I spent the night in jail. She was 500 feet away from me, didn't get to see her.
Oh, wow.
They sent me back to America.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Back to America, and then I'm like, fuck this, I'm not giving up. And then I found Gibraltar, which was weird because it was on EU soil geographically, technically Spanish, right?
Yeah.
But owned by the UK. So it was like this independent nation, and they were allowing Americans in. So then a week later we met there. And then I asked her to marry me the day we met.
Oh my God, that's
it was crazy. It was nuts. And part of it too, she had this Mel Brooks tattoo on her arm. It said, "It's good to be the king." I was like, all right, and it's crazy because I've taken chances before and like fallen flat on my face. But this one's like, it's been almost a year, and she's like my best friend. We spent every day together, during the quarantine. So it's been good.
Oh, I'm so happy for you.
Thanks.
That's so beautiful.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm really lucky.
Ah, that's really nice.
But I had 49 years of bullshit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, minus 14, right? Like,
yeah,
minus 15, right?
A lot of it my own bullshit, really.
Yeah. So you'd only had like, let me drill you on your relationship history. So it was all sort of New York, like tour based. But you've been doing comedy for like 10 years, right? Yeah. And so before that, you were what, like musician?
No, I worked in advertising.
You're advertising.
I was a copywriter.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're one of those assholes.
Yeah, but I didn't know. I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This is the way you get paid for being funny."
Yeah.
But I never thought about the dark arts.
Yeah.
Or that I was being pulled into something. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's weird. It's a trip. You don't realize it because it's micro influence, from the client. And they I don't even think anybody consciously realizes what they're doing. They just go, "This is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get people in a focus group and ask them what makes them tick and what are the drivers to their decision making and how do you scratch that itch." And then when you take a look back and you pull back and you look down, you're like, "Oh, I'm totally manipulating people."
Yeah.
To get things they don't need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was very political in my first years of being an adult, and that was good. That was good, and that has definitely guided my life choices very strongly.
Yeah.
Getting deep into political economics when you're 18, and then local politics in Australia. I was so angry at the state of Australian politics. Australia is very similar to the US in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And just how the lying and the level of potential for doing good, and just the thwarting, just the not doing good for people, and the level of inbuilt racism and blah 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 blah. And then from there started university, and then I went straight into political economics, and it was just the whole system, the world. I was very and that it guided me to not get into
that's good. I think that's
super corporate stuff. I did have a few years in corporate, and I recently went back to corporate for 2 months, and it was no, I can't work for a company that is supporting these businesses that I don't support, that I don't agree with, that are, and the cultures within those places, how people treat each other. Is horrible.
It's horrible.
It's
horrible.
It's the nastiest, it's the dark world of community. There's no community. It's everyone shitting on everyone, 100%. And this competition and this bad behavior.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I totally agree. And it's funny because if you do the math on all the politicians who are behaving the most badly right now, during the age of Aquarius, the 60s, when sex was free and wild and people didn't care about money and they cared about who you were as a person, as a flower children, those guys were about 21 when that was happening.
Wow.
So those were guys who knew they were going to be politicians, who stayed conservative, and at a time when they were trying to flash their money to get sex, women didn't care.
Yeah.
So they probably, at their peak sexuality, were not getting sex.
Yeah.
And now, like, the baby boomers really fucked up the world because, like, they were so big and so influential that they disrupted every life stage they went into. And now they're the final life stage. And they're facing mortality. And they're going, we want to fight this too, see?
Yeah,
you know, it's like, you're not
totally.
going to fight it. So
No.
then they're like, well, let's fuck up the timeshare on our way out.
Yeah, totally.
It's
And let's
fucking
make sure we
gnarly.
can enjoy everything. Just the lack of like what's the word, like perspective on their impact on everyone else and everything that they're leaving behind.
Yeah.
Is insane.
The bully boomers.
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good.
It feels weird to be part of a smaller generation in between two big ones.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Marsha in the Brady Bunch. You know, like, you got the baby boomers on one side, and you got, millennials on the other side, and then there's these Gen Xers in the middle going, I care about what you guys care about.
Yeah.
Fuck you guys. You know?
Right?
Yeah, but there's some of the Gen Xers are, like, kind of split.
Yeah.
You know, some of the ones that want to connect with their parents or have more conservative values.
Oh, totally.
It's just fucking weird.
What's your perspective on kids?
On kids?
Yeah.
I don't want to have them.
Why?
It's weird, right? Because I never actually put that decision on the front of my notebook. It's not like I made that decision consciously, but I think over time, my disappointment in the world made me not want to have a kid. It's like, I think some people get married because they want to get married, or fall in love because they want to get married, instead of get married because they've been in love.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Crazy.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
they get married because they want to have kids, as opposed to having a kid because they have such a great marriage.
Yeah, boom. That's the only reason why you should have a kid.
Yeah. And that's what I think. I've only been in a really happy marriage for 1 year.
Yeah.
But I think we both look at the world and we're like, we don't want to bring up a kid in a world that acts the way it's acting. I mean, I know it's cyclical, right? Like, there's a really great book called The Fourth Turning, and it talks about how, like, the way we have 4 seasons, there's, like, cycles in a human life, and that the human experience should be measured in 100-year chunks, or 80-year chunks rather, and every 20 years is a season, and, like, we have a season of awakening, like the 60s, and a season of crisis, like right now, and if you go backwards 20 years from each of those seasons, it's crisis, 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 awakening, awakening, awakening.
Yeah.
So winter comes, and there's nothing we can do about it. And right now we're in a winter, like, and we're on our way out of it.
Hopefully into the awakening.
Hopefully, yeah.
Or
well,
is, or is the
It
awakening
is.
before the crisis? I don't know.
The
I'm looking at,
awakening
like,
is next.
The awakening is next, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder when we talk about, because I look at the world and I go, oh, like, global warming, just general climate issues, populations, tensions, like geopolitical tensions. There's a lot of arguments to say, why would you bring a child into this world? But I also ask myself, you're talking about the 4 sort of seasons, have we always said this though? Like, have people always been saying, should we really bring a child into this? Like, I'm seeing, like, feudal Japan, and, like, there's this woman and man, like, in love, and they shouldn't be, and it's like, should we really bring a child into this craziness? So there's, like, samurai swords going on outside, or, like, in medieval times, or like, there's, like, in the 60s, when there was mutually assured destruction, like that whole situation with Cuba and fucking Russia and whatever, it's like, has there ever been a good time to have kids?
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, there probably has.
So maybe the 80s, man. The
Maybe
80s
the
are a
pretty good.
great time to have kids.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, it probably feels that way for everyone, for
Yeah,
sure.
I wonder.
But it's like, I don't know. Like, I just don't. I'm almost too selfish, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm honest with myself. I think, like, when I look at, like, the thing that makes me most happy is, like, actually working towards what I love to do.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel like I'm living a good life. And everything I've always wanted to do is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Not to the level I want to be at. I want to keep getting better. But not, I haven't had, like, I want to have a kid in there too.
Yeah.
I think like having a kid is almost like you love this band, and then the band becomes really popular, and I'm like, I don't like them anymore.
Yeah,
and that's what I think I was like with kids. Like, everybody listens to kids.
Yeah, right.
I'm not gonna be basic.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I agree with, like, I definitely started my life with I don't want kids. Like, why? Like, it doesn't make any environmental sense, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And then, you know, classic, like, hormonal clicking in around my late 20s, I was like, maybe let's reconsider this. And then all my friends were like, although I didn't really have friends from high school, but all those ones had kids in my early 20s. And then, like, it was in my later 20s that I started considering it, and I realized, I do kind of want them. Maybe I want to experience being a mom. Yeah. But I didn't know if I could be, if I was any good, because I didn't have any experience being around kids. And then eventually, like, I left my ex-husband because I was like, you would be a terrible father. Wow. Like, super self. Well, he was also just a terrible partner. Yeah. But he certainly couldn't be like, no way would he father children of mine. And then I was still like, yeah, I think I want to have kids. I think I've only got a few years to do it, but could I do it? Like, am I even a person that can handle being around kids? And that's when I started working at the kindergarten. Wow. And I was like, oh, I'm really good with kids.
That's awesome. That's great.
It's crazy. But now it's also like, now it's only been in the last sort of 2.5 years that I've really, 2 years really. I've been doing comedy for 3.5 years. So really in the last 2 years that I'm like, comedy, like, I've got some goals that I want to achieve in comedy, and I will only resent a child. Yeah. If they get in my way.
Yeah, I think it's good to be that honest about it. Yeah. Instead of just going, oh, people are going to judge me for being that honest, as opposed to actually being that honest. Yeah. Like, if I'm honest, I'm probably a little bit afraid of having a kid and being afraid that I might treat the kid the way my dad treated me.
Yeah, that terrifies me.
It's in our DNA. Like, you do. I'm made. Imagine, like, looking in the mirror every day and looking more and more like the guy that used to bully you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, becoming that person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I go to therapy and I like therapy, but my house is definitely haunted. Yeah. And I don't know. I know I love great kids, but what if my kid isn't a great kid? Yeah. Can I still be a great dad? And I don't necessarily feel 100% comfortable that I would be a great dad.
Yeah, that's tricky. Yeah. I actually don't have I don't have that insecurity myself. But if, for example, I did fall pregnant in the next 2 years, that would really, like, I'm too old. I hope the guy that I'm seeing doesn't listen to this. I've told him not to listen to this. But I'm too old to justify an abortion at this point. Like, I'm not saying anything to anybody else, but because I want to be a mum, if I did fall pregnant, I'd be like, let's make this work, Anna. You're smart enough. Yeah. You can make it work.
100%.
Don't want to be in that situation, but if I were to find myself in that situation, I'd go, well, this is this thing now. Yeah. And this is an opportunity, and this is something that I want. It's just not the right time.
100%. And I do think, listen, I mean, there's very few things in this life where we go, yeah, this is definitely what we're supposed to do. This is definitely what we're here for. You know what I mean? And there is, like, even just as a writer and as a person who wants to experience life and write about it and find connections between people, that's a very big part of life that I'm never going to have a visceral understanding of. I can have an intellectual understanding, but to, like, feel what people feel on a soulful level, I'm missing out. You know, in a real way. Like, it's a human thing. Like, it's and that's why we want to do it. It's that, like, chimp brain, or it's like, you know, it's this core thing in our physical in our genes, like in our cells. It's at a cellular level. We want to reproduce ourselves. Totally. And we don't get to necessarily experience that. And I'm not behaving the way I'm supposed to. I'm like a foot fungus that's like, I'll just stay on this toe. I'm cool here. The other foot fungus is like, dude, we're supposed to spread across the whole foot.
No, I'm good here.
I like the big toe.
Oh, that's very humble. Just comparing yourself to a foot fungus. That's beautiful.
An athlete's foot.
An athlete's foot. All right. Yeah. It's a successful foot that you as a fungus is growing on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. All right. We've got a couple of minutes. Is there anything like disgusting, or like, we've touched some pretty great topics. Is there anything particularly debaucherous or depraved that you would like to go into?
I mean, pedophilia was pretty big.
It's pretty good, right?
Right, yeah. Oh, that's so funny, that timing. No, I mean, I don't really go.
Your child is here.
I know, right? Delivery. Domino's. No, you know what's funny? I don't have that lens anymore where I go into. I used to kind of be like, oh, I want to go into this for the intention of going dark. And now it's more like, I got a flashlight. I'm ready to go dark when dark comes.
Yeah.
But like, no, not really. I'm happier now, I think, than I've ever been, even though I'm more stressed out.
You're more stressed out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah.
Like, we moved to a new country.
Yeah. That's super stressful.
Super stressful.
Yeah.
We have a cat that's insane.
Oh, wow.
We have my mom.
It's like having a baby. Yeah.
It is like having him. I mean, I call him my son. And then my mom's getting her residency visa, and it's in another language. And we've got lawyers and real estate agents, and navigating all that through a pandemic. Literally weeks after I got my residency in Spain to now start all over again in Portugal. And all through the pandemic. And then I found out I'm being audited by the IRS.
Oh, no.
But I'm not worried about it. It's not like I made a bunch of money.
No.
I've never been dishonest with them. Like, but it's just
another layer. It's
another
like,
layer
come on,
of shit,
man.
man. It's another. So even though with all that stress, I'm still like able to be like, you know, I'm happy. I'm doing what I like to do. I'm meeting cool people.
Yep.
And I feel more free than I've ever felt. It's a really weird way to feel during a pandemic, but I do.
I feel exactly the same. Like,
Awesome.
I feel like with all the bullshit that went down with my house, share house situation at the start of the year, all my job changes, even though I'm like, you know, now I'm seeing someone, I feel so free. Like, I feel like, every decision I'm making is really considered. All the opportunities that are coming up for me are really exciting. Yeah. I feel like I've really surrounded myself with people who support me, and I feel like, and that gives you freedom, just being supported by people and you supporting those people as well. It's just like, it's
awesome.
Flirting. You're buoyed by them.
Yeah, it's community at its best.
Yeah.
100%. And I definitely feel that here. After coming from a place like Hollywood and New York, New York less so, but LA is so bad. Comics don't help each other, they step on each other. And if you get a leg up, then they're pulling your other leg down. It's like, I hate to say that, I have a lot of comedians that I'm really good friends with there and like that are like my family, but there's a lot of comedians there in the culture there where it's kind of acceptable to step on each other and to get in each other's way. And
it's not okay.
It's not okay. It's not even whether or not it's okay as a comedian. It's not okay as a human being.
As a human, it's so
bad.
And it's kind of like an extension of that sort of Hollywood or corporate culture going into something that's so. Stand-up comedy is so personal. Yeah. It's so vulnerable, and to be stepping on each other, and that can happen in every scene, right? Yeah. Usually in smaller scenes, it seems to happen because people are threatened, and they feel like there's a finite. The pie is only so big and whatever, but it's in a bigger space. I suppose it comes from fear as well in LA. And
totally. I mean, there's no real Google map, right? From like going to open mic to getting famous. Yeah. So you kind of have to use yourselves as milestones, and then if you see somebody else achieving something that you think you should have achieved, then you kind of resent that person. Like, well, I should have achieved that already. How come they achieved it? Let me compare myself to that person.
That is like the foot fungus of society.
Totally.
Comparing yourself to other people. You can only compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Yeah. That's the only.
It's a wrong energy. Like, comedy is not sport.
No.
It's art. And it's not a track meet. Like, we're not trying to be the first. Yeah. Even though people confuse us when we get off stage and go, "You're my favorite." Like, it wasn't a contest.
No.
This isn't American Idol.
No,
like, we're
exactly.
We're all telling our own truths, and that's the only person you're competing against is who you were on that stage the day before.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of community and why I like this scene here. So much, because people are way more. People are so nice here. It makes me suspicious. I'm like, are you guys a cult? Is one of you gonna try to sleep with my wife? Like, it's
probably
really weird. It's really weird.
Oh shit. How long are you gonna stay in Berlin?
Till the 9th.
Till the 9th of July.
Of July, yeah.
But you'll be coming back.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it brought me a lot of joy because I was nervous leaving New York. I had just gotten past at almost all the clubs. I was doing, 6 to 10 shows a night. It was bananas. And then we got married, and much to the disappointment of TV shows like 90 Day Fiancé, my foreign wife had zero interest to move to America.
Yeah.
Like 0.
Yeah.
And so I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? And I made a life decision and then had to figure out how I was going to have a career in Europe. Fortunately, I spent like 4 years here as a comic in London a few years ago. And so I was like, yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like European audiences for me were a big gap between the way that I thought. Like I went to uni when I was in Sweden. So like during my formative years, I could really relate to European people, almost to the detriment of going back to America. But it was so, I didn't know if it was going to work or not. And I didn't know if I was going to be satisfied. And I was really worried I was going to resent her.
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't want to ever voice that concern.
No.
But then I started meeting more and more people. During the pandemic, there was a lot of people that were home for once. And so I became part of Comedians of Europe.
Yep.
And we all started talking about sharing information and making like a cooperative. And so far it's been great.
Yeah. We're
so
helping
stoked.
each other. We're building
it's nice.
People are building the scene here because there are so many English speakers. There's so many opportunities here and it's not America.
This is way less dirty than the other episodes, by the way.
Yeah.
Is this because I'm 50? Is that why we're not talking about assholes and rimming?
Didn't you say 49? Didn't you say 49?
No, I said I got married at 49.
You're 50 now.
I got married, but I turned 50. Yeah.
Well, you are the oldest.
Am I the oldest person you've ever had on this podcast?
Yes.
No way. That sucks.
But I have had people with just as little hair as you. So,
okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
But your mustache is fine.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm a model for salsa bottles.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, let's wrap it up. That has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Tamer.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and do you want to plug yourself in any form if anyone's listening?
Oh, please follow me on Instagram so we can stay in touch and come to shows. That's where I put all my show information. And my Instagram is Tamer Kat. Tamerkat.
Yeah, easy peasy, cool.
Easy peasy.
It has been such a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Thank you. And that's been Adults Only Comedy Berlin. See you next time.
Woo.
Bye.